Some ghost stories are just whispers, strange bumps in the night, a flicker of shadows, or creaking floorboards. But there's one story in American history that goes beyond whispers. A story of a spirit that didn't just haunt a house. It spoke, attacked, and tormented an entire family. This is the legend of the Bell Witch haunting, a tale so terrifying it became the first documented haunting in U.S. history. Set in the early 1800s in a quiet Tennessee farming community, this story has been passed down for generations. Some call it folklore, some call it myth, but others swear it was frighteningly real. The year was 1804. A man named John Bell Sr., his wife Lucy, and their children moved to Red River, Robertson County, Tennessee. John was a hard-working farmer. The land was fertile, the fields stretched wide, and life seemed promising. The Bells quickly became respected members of the community, religious, prosperous, and seemingly blessed. But beneath that peaceful surface, something dark was waiting. It was in 1817 when the first strange event occurred. John was inspecting his cornfield when he spotted an unusual creature lurking near the brush. Its body looked like a dog, but its head resembled a rabbit. Confused and alarmed, John fired his rifle. The creature vanished into thin air. No trace, no blood, nothing. That night the disturbances began. Loud knocking on the doors and walls, sounds of chains dragging across the wooden floors, whispering voices that no one could quite understand. And when the children tried to sleep, something pulled at their blankets and pillows. At first, the family thought maybe it was thieves or mischievous neighbors. But soon, it became clear. This was not human. For weeks, the family endured the unexplained noises. But then, the entity escalated. One night, a woman's voice echoed in the darkness. It laughed, it mocked, it threatened. "I'll never let you rest. I'll never let you live in peace." The voice grew stronger, clearer, until it introduced itself as Kate. Some believed it was the spirit of a local woman named Kate Batts, who had once quarreled with John Bell over a land deal. Others said it was something older, darker, something not human at all. Soon, the spirit began targeting the children, especially John's youngest daughter, Betsy Bell. At night, she would wake up screaming. Her hair was pulled violently, her cheeks slapped so hard that red marks appeared. Sometimes, invisible hands pinched and scratched her until she bled. John Bell himself also began to suffer. He would experience sudden paralysis in his mouth and tongue, making it hard to speak or eat. The more he prayed, the worse his symptoms became. What terrified everyone the most was that the spirit was intelligent. It could recite Bible verses, sing hymns, and even carry on conversations. This wasn't just a mindless haunting. It was as though something had moved in, a spirit with purpose, anger, and a cruel sense of humor. The haunting didn't remain a family secret for long. Neighbors began visiting the Bell home, curious and afraid, and what they heard was undeniable. The same disembodied female voice mocking, laughing, sometimes predicting things that would happen days later. The Bell Witch became a community obsession. People traveled from miles away, hoping to hear the spirit for themselves. Some left terrified. Others left convinced that the Bells were cursed. Even notable figures of the time, including General Andrew Jackson, the future President of the United States, were said to have visited the Bell farm to witness the phenomenon. The nights at the Bell farm grew darker, heavier, as if the very air was pressing down on the family. What began as whispers and knocks had turned into screams, violent thrashing, and a presence so strong it was impossible to ignore. Betsy Bell, the the youngest daughter, was the spirit's favorite victim. Almost every night her cries echoed through the wooden farmhouse as invisible hands slapped her across the face, pulled her hair, and left her body covered in scratches. She begged her parents to help, but there was no one they could call, no priest or doctor who could chase away what they now called the witch. The voice grew bolder. It no longer waited for the silence of the night. During the day, while the family tried to work the fields or gather in prayer, the witch would laugh, curse, and humiliate them. Sometimes it sang hymns in a hauntingly beautiful voice, only to break into shrill laughter that chilled everyone to the bone. It mocked John Bell relentlessly, calling him Old Jack, predicting that his end was near. As word spread across the countryside, curiosity seekers poured into Robertson County. Neighbors, strangers, even educated men came to witness the Bell Witch. What they encountered was something they could not explain. The voice spoke freely in their presence, sometimes repeating back conversations word for word that had taken place miles away, sometimes revealing secrets only the visitor would know. The entity seemed to be everywhere at once, listening, watching, waiting. The torment grew unbearable for Betsy. Each night she was dragged from her bed, beaten until she screamed, her hair pulled so violently it nearly ripped from her scalp. She fainted often, unable to withstand the torture. The witch taunted her about her fiancé, a young man named Joshua Gardner. Betsy longed for marriage, but each time she and Joshua were together, the witch's presence became unbearable. Strange shadows followed them, whispers filled their ears, and Betsy felt hands clawing at her dress. The pressure grew so overwhelming that eventually Betsy broke off her engagement. Heartbroken, she wept, but the witch only laughed, boasting that it would never allow the union to happen. John Bell himself suffered constantly. His health began to decline rapidly. He experienced twitching in his face, difficulty swallowing, and strange episodes where he could not speak at all. Doctors were baffled, but the witch always claimed credit. "Old Jack is mine," it hissed. "I'll see him to his grave." John prayed, but even his prayers were mocked, repeated in a cruel mimicry that left his family in despair. The haunting had grown so notorious that even General Andrew Jackson, the famed military hero who would later become the President of the United States, decided to investigate. He arrived with a group of men, some soldiers, some skeptics, all curious to see if the stories were true. As their wagons approached the Bell property, the wheels suddenly locked tight. The horses strained, sweating, unable to move the load. The men shouted, confused, until a high-pitched female voice cut through the air. "Go on to the house, General. I'll see you soon enough." The wheels instantly loosened, and the wagons rolled freely. That night, Jackson and his men sat in the Bell home, waiting. They laughed, telling ghost stories of their own, pretending to be brave. But when the witch finally made itself known, their bravado vanished. Invisible hands slapped one soldier so hard he staggered across the room. Another cried out that his hair was being yanked. Jackson himself admitted he had never seen anything like it. By morning, the men demanded to leave. Legend says Jackson swore he would rather fight the entire British Army again than spend another night at the Bell farm. The witch seemed to feed on fear, growing stronger with each passing month. Visitors continued to flock to the Bell's home, and the spirit delighted in tormenting them. Sometimes it mimicked voices of loved ones. Sometimes it predicted tragedies. And more than once, its words came true. There was no pattern, no way to understand its motives. At times it acted playful, singing and laughing. At other times, it was cruel beyond measure. Betsy's suffering became unbearable, but she was not the only victim. Her mother Lucy was sometimes spared from the witch's wrath, even treated with kindness. The entity occasionally praised her, bringing her fruit and singing her hymns. Why Lucy alone was respected remained a mystery, but it made the haunting even more disturbing. The witch was not a mindless demon. It chose its targets, playing favorites, shifting between cruelty and kindness with terrifying intelligence. As John Bell's health worsened, the witch's threats grew bolder. It often declared that it would kill him, that his days were numbered. On the morning of December 20th, 1820, John was found in his bed, unconscious. A small vial of strange black liquid was discovered nearby. No one knew where it had come from. When the family tried to give some to the cat, the animal convulsed and died instantly. The witch laughed, its voice echoing through the room. "I gave old Jack that dose. He's finished now." John Bell died that day, and his funeral became one of the largest gatherings the county had ever seen. People came from miles around to mourn, but the witch would not allow peace. During the service, its mocking voice rang out, laughing, singing drinking songs, ridiculing the grieving family. Many left shaken, convinced they had witnessed something unholy. After John's death, the intensity of the haunting slowly began to fade, though it never completely stopped. Betsy continued to suffer, her health fragile, her spirit broken. She eventually moved away, desperate to escape the torment. But the land itself seemed stained. Strange lights were seen in the woods, and eerie sounds came from a nearby cave, now forever linked with the legend, the Bell Witch Cave. Travelers reported whispers inside the darkness of the cave, phantom hands that pushed them, and cold gusts of air that carried voices from nowhere. To this day, people who visit claim to hear laughter, crying, or the faint sound of someone calling their name. The cave became a place of dread, a reminder that some spirits do not rest. The witch herself made one last promise. Before disappearing, it told the family it would return in 7 years. True to its word, in 1828 the voice was heard again, visiting John Bell Jr., one of the sons. This time, it spoke of the past, the present, and even the future, predicting events with chilling accuracy. Then it vanished once more, but it was not gone forever. Some say it appears every century, haunting the descendants of the Bells, roaming the cave, leaving its mark on the land of Tennessee. The legend of the Bell Witch has endured for over 200 years. Unlike most ghost stories, it was not whispered in secret. It was witnessed by hundreds, documented in records, and passed down through generations. Skeptics call it folklore, a tale exaggerated by time. Believers say it is the most terrifying haunting in American history, proof that some spirits are not bound by silence or shadows. Even now, the Bell Witch remains a name that brings unease. Travelers to Adams, Tennessee, still visit the old cave, still feel the chill in the air, still hear things they cannot explain. And when the wind howls across the fields where John Bell once walked, some swear it carries with it the mocking laughter of the witch, a voice from the darkness that refuses to be silenced. Legends never truly die. They linger like echoes, whispering through time, reshaping themselves with each retelling. The Bell Witch haunting might have begun over 2 centuries ago, but its shadow stretches far beyond the Bell family's farm. Long after John Bell's death and Betsy's departure, people continued to ask the same question. What was the Bell Witch? Was it truly the spirit of Kate Batts, seeking revenge over a land dispute? Or was it something darker, something beyond human comprehension? Skeptics have tried to explain the haunting as superstition, hysteria, or exaggeration. Some claim the Bells themselves created the story, that John Bell's illness was natural, that Betsy's torment was the product of stress and imagination. But such explanations falter when faced with the sheer number of witnesses, ministers, neighbors, travelers, even a future president. Too many claim to have heard the witch's voice, felt its presence, and seen its power. Could so many people have been fooled by a lie? Or was the truth stranger than fiction? One theory is that the Bell Witch was never human at all. Folklorists suggest it may have been a poltergeist, a violent spirit that feeds on energy and fear, often centered around young girls. Betsy, the youngest daughter, seemed to be the focus of its rage, her suffering fueling the entity's strength. Others argue it was something older, perhaps a demon that cloaked itself in the name of Kate Batts, using a familiar story to mask a far more sinister origin. The way it shifted between cruelty and kindness, the way it spoke of future events, the way it tormented and controlled, these are not traits of a simple ghost, but of a being with intelligence and malice. Over time, the legend became rooted in Tennessee soil. The Bell Witch Cave, a dark stretch of limestone near the old Bell Farm, became a place of fear and fascination. Visitors tell of footsteps echoing behind them, of whispers calling their name, of cold air brushing their neck even in the heat of summer. Some have been shoved, scratched, or heard laughter bouncing off the stone walls. Locals say the witch never truly left. It simply moved underground, dwelling in the shadows, waiting for anyone brave enough or foolish enough to disturb it. Stories continue to surface. In the late 20th century, paranormal investigators visited the cave, capturing recordings of strange voices, snapping photographs of glowing orbs, and even documenting sudden malfunctions in their equipment. Tourists who entered with skepticism often left pale and shaken, unwilling to speak of what they experienced. One family claimed their child was pushed into the cave wall by invisible hands. Another visitor reported hearing the sound of chains dragging across the floor, the same sound the Bells once heard in their home. Yet, despite the fear, the Bell Witch has also become a part of local identity. Adams, Tennessee, leans into the legend, drawing visitors from around the world who want to stand where the haunting began. The story has inspired books, plays, documentaries, and even films, each trying to capture the terror of a voice without a body, a spirit without peace. But none can truly match the raw fear of those who lived it. For the Bells, the haunting was no entertainment. It was years of torment, humiliation, and despair. John Bell's death left the family broken, and Betsy's spirit was scarred for life. Even after moving away, she carried the weight of the haunting, never fully free from the shadow of the witch. For her descendants, the story became both a curse and a legacy, passed down as a reminder of what their family endured. What is most chilling about the Bell Witch is not just the violence, but the intelligence. Most hauntings are fleeting, noises in the dark, glimpses of shapes that vanish when the light returns. But the Bell Witch spoke clearly, carried on conversations, predicted the future, and displayed power over both the physical and spiritual world. It seemed to delight in control, feeding on fear, laughter echoing louder the more its victims suffered. It was not bound to one place or one person. It lingered, followed, and promised to return. And in many ways, it has. Even now, some claim to hear her. Drivers passing the Old Bell property at night report a woman's voice calling from the fields. Campers near the cave tell of nightmares that begin the moment they fall asleep. Dreams of a woman with hollow eyes whispering threats. Paranormal researchers say the energy around Adams, Tennessee, is unlike anywhere else, as though the land itself remembers the suffering that took place. Skeptics still scoff, pointing to psychology, folklore, and the human love for ghost stories. They say the legend survives because people want it to, because fear is powerful, because stories bind communities together. But the locals know better. They know the whispers in the cave are too clear, the laughter too sharp, the fear too real to be dismissed. They know that even if the witch is only a story, it is a story with teeth. The haunting of the Bell family remains one of the most detailed, most terrifying accounts in American history. More than 200 years later, it has not faded into silence. Instead, it has grown, its roots spreading deeper, its voice echoing louder. For some, it is a cautionary tale. For others, it is proof that the world holds mysteries we cannot explain. And perhaps that is why the Bell Witch endures. Not because we want to believe in ghosts, but because deep down we fear what cannot be explained, what cannot be controlled. We fear the voice in the dark that calls our name when no one is there. We fear the unseen hands that brush against us when we are alone. We fear that some spirits are not bound by time, that they wait patiently, century after century, for the moment to return. The witch once promised to come back. Some say she already has. Others believe she never left at all. And on quiet nights in Adams, when the wind rustles through the trees and the shadows stretch across the fields, there are those who swear they still hear her laughter, sharp and mocking, riding on the air. The Bell Witch haunting is more than a legend. It is a reminder that the past does not always stay buried, that some spirits refuse to rest, and that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true. And so the legend of the Bell Witch lingers, 200 years later, still whispering, still terrifying, still waiting. Was it the restless spirit of Kate Batts, a demon feeding on fear, or simply a story too powerful to die? No matter the answer, one truth remains. The Bell family never found peace, and the land of Adams, Tennessee, will forever carry their shadow. If you ever visit the Bell Witch Cave, listen closely. The whispers may call your name, the laughter may echo in your ears, and you may realize the witch has never left at all. Do you believe the Bell Witch was real, or just a legend that grew beyond control? Tell us what you think in the comments below. And if you love dark tales like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because more haunted stories are waiting, and some may be closer than you think.